Hi, I am Lindsay Del Carlo, the Trial Garden Manager of Renee's Garden Seed in Felton, California on the Central Coast. And I thought it would be fun to do a little series on our new scatter can cut flower mix. And so I would like to show you how we sow the seed, and then later on we'll follow up as it's growing, and you can see how it grows, and then we will later harvest the flowers and show how to make some great bouquets from our cut flower mix. So I'm just going to show you how I sow the seed, and this is our scatter can, and it's got the seed along with rice hulls. The rice hulls are just to distribute the seed, and it makes it very easy to see where everything's going and the spacing when you broadcast the seed along the bed. So I will close it up and shake it up really good to distribute the seed. And so when I sow it, I'm aiming for about 2 inches apart for the seeds. So I'll just I like to sow this by just taking a handful and get low down on the bed and just very easily sprinkle the seed along the bed. And if you get it a little closer than you were intending to, you can always go back through and thin out if it's too thick. So I'll do this along the entire length of the bed. So this bed is about 220 square feet, so about half of this can should cover the entire bed. Okay, so now I have all of my seed broadcasted across the bed, and I'll take my rake and I will just rake across and loosen up the soil and try to get the seeds covered to about 1/4 inch. And then after this, I will water them all in. So I just go across the bed and lightly rake everything in to try to cover it all up. And I'll do this across the whole bed until everything is evenly covered. So now I have all my seed raked in to a depth of about 1/4 inch, and I've evened it out so the bed's nice and flat. And I'll take my sprayer, and this has a really fine mist, which is what you want when you freshly sow seeds. And I will just water evenly over the entire bed and get it nice and soaked. And so after this, I will have to, depending on the weather, I'll have to check my seed bed every day. And if you notice the top of the soil is kind of dry, you'll check down the depth of the soil. If it's dry within 1 inch, you'll definitely want to water. So it just depends on what your soil type is and what the weather's like. Here at our garden, our soil is pretty much pure sand, so we have to water daily. If you have a thicker soil that has more clay content, you may only have to water every couple days. So we'll come back and revisit this bed in about a month, and we'll see how it's progressing. You'll get to see how everything is germinating, and get to see which spacing we have achieved, and if we need to do any thinning, then we'll do it then. And then after that, we will visit it again when we can make some bouquets. So here we are to revisit our cut flower mix that we had sown at the beginning of April. It's now the middle of May, and so we're about 6 weeks on after sowing, and so you can see the height of it is about 10 inches tall. And so I have our whole bed here covered with bird netting because we have a big problem with birds in our Central California garden. And so I use bird netting with simple irrigation hoops stuck into the bed, and the bird netting is just laid over the top, and it's held down with landscape staples like this every foot or so. And so it's at a good height now to withstand any bird damage. So I'm going to go ahead and take off all the bird netting for the whole bed, and I'm going to go through, and any patches where it looks like it has grown in way too thickly, I'm just going to pull out little chunks of it to give most of the flowers a little more room to fill out completely and be able to achieve their mature height. So I'm just taking all my bird netting off of the bed. I just took off all the landscape staples along the entire, each side, and I'll fold it all up and put it away. And then we'll go through and look at the spacing on our cut flower mix. So as I look over the bed, I can see some spots that came up really thickly, and I'll go through and just thin out some so that the flowers can reach their full height and flower best. Sometimes if they're just way too crowded together, they'll compete for root space and they'll get stunted, and the flowers won't be nearly as nice as if they had enough space to grow. So on these patches, like right here, that's really thick, I'll just go through and every 6 to 8 inches or so, I'll just grab a chunk of plants and thin it out. So I'll do this all down the bed in any spot that I see that's just way too thick. Okay, so I've gone through the whole bed and I've thinned out patches that were growing in just a little bit too thickly, so all the flowers can grow to their full potential. And we'll come back and revisit this bed in about 4 to 6 weeks, and we'll actually be able to see the succession of bloom, because a lot of the flowers bloom at different times and it kind of changes over the season. So we'll start cutting bouquets, and we'll show you how to cut some wonderful bouquets with all of our flowers. Okay, so here we are revisiting our cut flower mix just 4 weeks after the last visit, where I was thinning out the thick patches of the mix where it had germinated too close together. And as you can see, it's quite tall now, about 5 feet tall, 5.5 feet. And this here you can really see the first succession of bloom. First it comes up with nice cool colors, pinks and whites and purples and blues. And then later on it'll turn to more of a hot color mix when all the zinnias and sunflowers and marigolds start to sprout. So now I can start cutting bouquets. So I'll show you how I do it. I choose flowers that are nice, and then I always try to cut way down on the stem. And then you want to cut off that entire internode of the stem right down to a set of leaves, so that it'll grow back. It'll grow back again and then bloom again. So I'm just going to go through and pick the flowers that I like and cut a nice bouquet. So I just go through and I roughly cut all the flowers that I want, and then I'll go back through and clean up the stems and arrange the bouquet. Okay, so I have my cut flowers, and I tried to get a little bit of everything, so I have a nice mixture for my bouquet. And I just take them over to the table, and from here I'll lay them out, and then I go through and I clean up the stems. So I will, cut off anything that I don't really want in my bouquet. And so you'll go through and strip off any extra leaves that'll otherwise be packed into your bouquet. And so your bouquet will be a little more open and airy. Like these calendula have a lot of leaves on them, and strip them all off so that they're not just packed into my bouquet. Okay, so now I have all my stems cleaned up on my bouquet here, and I have it arranged so there's a nice mixture of colors and textures. And so then I will go through and I'll cut all the stems off to one length, and so I can put it in a nice vase, fill it up with water. And that's our first bouquet with our annual cut flower mix.